What is up, guys? It is King Scarlet back again with yet another deck profile that I am confident calling pretty good. But before we get started, let's go ahead and address this name change. I've gotten a few comments that were at least around the type of thing like, hey, why the name change? That's kind of a little presumptuous, isn't it? A little aggressive. It was not anything to make me sound like I suddenly think more of myself or like I all of a sudden started to like care more. Basically, here's what was behind it. I thought it was a dope name. That's pretty much it. It was just kind of cool to run across an in-theme card for Red Dragon Archfiend, which 50% of my name was based off of in general anyway. It's called King Scarlet, actually, and I just thought that was really cool, and because it related to what I based my name off of, I was like, that would be a really awesome name. Decided to make the change. It just felt right in this season of everything being kind of bleh. I thought it would be nice to shake things up a little bit, too. So that's pretty much it. No deeper reasons. I don't suddenly think that I am above anyone or that I've finally made it. I'm talking about a children's card game. So that's it. Anyway, let's go ahead and jump into the deck profile, shall we? Generators is really cool. I said generators is. I'm already off to a see, I still can't talk correctly. Nothing's changed. King of talking badly. Generators are really, really fun because they're just full of really big boss monsters, but it's really more of a control style deck. Think true Dracos, but in a way that doesn't make you instantly angry. So it's really, really fun to play it. It's one of my favorites so far. I love getting to experiment with it, and it's only going to get better. Unfortunately, now much later though, due to I think the new cards come out in Eternity Code, and I think that just got pushed back. If I'm wrong, correct me in the comments and definitely attack me as a person for making a mistake. But yeah, we'll go ahead and jump in, guys. I think you'll really like this. First, we'll start out with the monsters. We've got two Utgarda. It's going to be really great for me to stumble through these names. It's going to be fun for everybody. What a time to be alive. Utgarda, Generator Boss of Delusion. I really don't like the artwork on this card, to be honest. It's unrelated to how the deck is played, but it's kind of dumb. But unfortunately, the dumbest artwork is our best generator card right now, as far as the boss monsters go, because yes, you have to tribute 2 generator monsters as its cost, but as a quick effect, you get to target one card and banish it. Rather than with Frody, which we'll get to in a moment, you had to tribute and it destroyed, but then your opponent got to redraw cards, which kind of sucked. So I think this is a much better card as far as removal and one of your main interruption cards. It's a whole lot better to banish something than it is to now just kind of load it into the graveyard. A lot of decks are like, yay, when you pop something or put it in the graveyard. So the ability to banish is really nice. The only downside is, the tribute of 2, but luckily your main engine supplies you with enough materials for you to tribute off. Next, we've got Needhog, Generator Boss of Ice. This one is the second best in my opinion because it is a summon negator. Gator. Kind of looks, no, it doesn't. We're not going to get into it. Sorry for the glare here. That kind of sucks, doesn't it? Oh, well. So what this does is it negates inherent summons. So for example, if your opponent special summons a Cyber Dragon or just in general, basically if it does anything but fusion summon. Now contact fusion, I believe it can still negate, but something like polymerization activating or even something like instant fusion or really a card effect that's going to, sorry, I'm going to move the camera a little bit. A card effect that does summon something cannot be negated by Needhog because it only negates a special summon. So much like some of the Solemn cards, it can't negate something that would summon something else. So that's kind of a bummer, but still a really powerful effect because it's not like your opponents, just in general. I don't know why I said it that way. It's not like people, your opponents that you will be playing, are not inherently summoning anymore. That's something that everyone does. So this can still be a very powerful interruption. Next, we've got Mardell, Generator Boss of Light. That one was the easiest one to say so far. This one is really your main searcher slash play starter card, but it's best to get it out with the Lonefire Blossom. But yeah, a lot of people cut this down maybe for cost reasons and so on. You could get away with playing only one, but I definitely like at least two on the off chance that I accidentally end up with one in my hand on my opening hand. Because to tell you the truth, guys, you don't want to see your generator bosses in your hand if you can help it. You can occasionally get out of that, but it's just best to not see them and see other power cards. But this searches any generator card to your hand, which is really, really nice. And then it's a nice beefy body on board too, and it becomes a target for World Legacy Monstrosity. So very, very good card. I would highly recommend at least two. You don't need to play three, to be honest, but I think cutting it down to one is just not enough. Next, you've got Hela, Naglfar, and Develgus. They really hate me with these names. Hela is basically I'm actually going to trade these because this one's shinier, and the glare can, you know what? You can take away the shininess of a super, but a secret needs to. It doesn't look that better. That was not worth anyone's time. Sorry to waste it. You can't really see it. So Hela, as I was saying, now that I switched them and confused everyone, Hela is the one that brings back things from the graveyard. It's kind of your in-archetype searchable monster reborn. You don't use it very often, so I personally just use this as a body for when I'm going to bring out something to exceed summon, because you have another way to bring stuff back from the graveyard, which I'll get to later on in the extra deck. Then you've got Naglfar, and this one is actually controversial because I've seen some ruling videos that are like, no, you cannot save the tokens. But every time I'm on Wygo Pro, if I have tokens left and they're about to be destroyed and this guy's on the field, I do get prompted to tribute one of my generators, including himself, to save the tokens. So I don't know. I've seen MST.TV's video. I'm not saying the guy's wrong, but I'm not saying he's always right either. He's a very knowledgeable man. But I would talk to, if you know any judges in your local area and see about, whoa, sorry, upstairs neighbors. If you heard a thud, somebody dropped a bowling ball or something of equal weight. I would definitely talk to a judge or somebody who understands rulings a little better than I do. But I will just say from what I've seen in playtesting, this guy does allow you to save your tokens and, of course, your other generator monsters as well if they're going to be destroyed. Only once per turn. So this can be really, really good in those niche situations when you want to bring them out. Then you've got Develgus. Said the wrong word twice. I couldn't get it out. Wow. See, nothing's changed. Nothing but the name changed, babies. Develgus, I've seen completely cut from the deck. And the reason that I kept it was simply because you need different types, attributes, and names for this deck to really function to its full capacity. If you run only the main 3 good cards, you're eventually going to find yourself stuck with nothing left to do. And Develgus does occasionally unbrick your hand. If you bring this out with your boss stage, this gets your generator monsters out of your hand where you don't want them. So he can be good. I wouldn't write this one off completely. It's just not your first choice. That's why we have it at 1. And kind of same thing here with this last generator monster. We've got Frody, Generator Boss of Swords. This one at first was the main interrupter along with Needhog, and then they came out with Utgarda, which is the ugly castle one, which is now the best one. Frody, I don't think the trade-off is worth it. In niche situations when the game state is simplified, go ahead and use Frody to pop a couple cards, and who cares if your opponent draws 2 because you've got game anyway, right? But when you're first starting off a duel, your opponent is going to start with 6 cards because you are going to choose to go first anytime you can. And if they already started with 6 cards and then you pop, let's say, 2 of their cards, you had to tribute 2 of yours, and then you just gave them 2 more in the hand. That's not a good payoff, especially in the state of Yu-Gi-Oh! Right now when resources basically are what win you the game. You really want to snowball and keep as many resources as you can. So Frody's cut down to 1, and honestly, when the new guys come out, I might not use him at all. I still would take Develgus over Frody just because he gives your opponent more advantage over you after you pop something, which might be just enough to play through your board and win anyway. So yeah, just keep that in mind. Our last level 9 monster is not a generator, but it might as well be. It's Nightmare Incarnation Idly. This one is really great to bring out with your World Legacy Monstrosity because what it does is, it acts obviously as a level 9 if you want to make some Exceeds plays, but also if you don't want to make Exceeds plays and you just want to end on your generator interruptions, Idly saves them from being destroyed by World Legacy Monstrosity. Now remember that Idly only saves level 9 monsters. It cannot save all of your monsters, so it does not save your tokens or anything like that. But it keeps them from being destroyed, your level 9s being destroyed by card effects, not by battle, just card effects. And there are some niche situations where this card can wipe the board of links and so on if your opponent has more of them and this card is special summoned. So that could be a decent interruption, even if you want to set Monstrosity and bring out an Idly. If you're playing like Salamangrate or something, that could always just like wipe their board and be done. Because it does not destroy them, it just sends them all to the graveyard non-targeting. So that's pretty nice. Next, we've got our play starter card, which is 3 Lonefire Blossom. This allows you to turbo out I can't even say the name for some. It was the easiest one to say, and I stumbled upon that one. Mardell. It allows you to turbo out Mardell, thus searching your boss stage or another resource that you want, which is really, really nice. So that's really helpful to have. You really want to open on this if possible. But if you don't, it's not the end of the world, because even if you just open on 1 copy of boss stage, congratulations, you got your win condition, you got your engine going. That's really what this deck is trying to do. It's very simple. Next, we've got 3 Ash Blossom. Because we just like to have control, we want to have some more interruptions. Sometimes we only get out 1 in our first turn, and sometimes that's not enough in this state of the game. So another interruption, a well-placed Ash can end an opponent's turn still, which is really, really great. And then this also can be used as synchro material on occasion to make this guy here, which is really, really nice. Sometimes you top deck an Ash and you don't need it anymore, so why not make an unbeatable boy, right? But we'll get to that later. Now we're at that point in the video where if you're new to me, you've noticed that these Ash Blossoms are black and white, and you're like, what's he doing? These are proxies. This is not an alternative artwork, but I do this only with cards that I already own, and I only put that many copies of the card that I own in a deck. This keeps me from being that's the wrong phrasing. This keeps me from having to move cards around all the time when I want to do a deck profile, and it allows me to keep my decks all put together with the cards that I already own, and so that I can play a little bit quicker and have decks ready to go to play with friends, which I know is not really happening right now in the midst of the coronavirus nonsense, but that's why I create proxies. Just so you know, I will never proxy a card on a video or at all that I don't already own, because I wouldn't feel right telling you to get these cards and play them if I didn't already own them myself. Now, if you're not new to me and you've heard that spiel a lot, I apologize, but I just want to make sure that our newcomers on the channel understand that I'm not just cheating and telling them to buy the real cards when I didn't. That is not the case. Let's move on. That's it for monsters, so let's talk about spells. Of course, our main engine and win condition is Generaider Boss Stage. If you don't see this, it's going to be really tough to have plays. You might be able to somehow ramsham wing jangle out a Calamities if you draw lucky, but it's probably not going to happen that way. So Boss Stage is a must-have. That's why we have Terraforming as well as essentially our 4th copy of it. But with Lonefire and then leading into Mardell, that's 7 copies of Boss Stage. Then you've got 3 copies of a trap that search it, so that's 10 copies. And then you have Boss Quest as your 12th copy of this field spell, because as long as you have a Generaider monster in hand, this unbricks your hand by searching 2 Generaider spells or traps with different names, and then you get to put that Generaider monster that you did not really want in your hand anyway at the bottom of your deck. So it unbricks your hand and gets you what you need, but you can only activate 1 per turn, so I cut this down to 2 because I found that I kept on seeing multiples in my playtesting, and I really didn't like that, so that's why this is at 2. Next, we've got 1 Generaider Boss Loot. You could even cut this, but I wouldn't, just because it makes this card playable. I've got one-ofs of some of the Generaider cards because you have to add cards with different names. So that's something that, if you want to keep your card advantage rolling, you have to have those names to search for, and they have to be spells and traps. So Boss Loot is just okay. What it does is while you control a token, your opponent's monsters cannot target Generaider effect monsters for attacks. So while you control a token, they're not going to be able to attack into your boss monsters, which is okay. But then if they do get rid of all your tokens and then attack into your boss monster and destroy it, they get to draw a card, which I get what it's doing. That's not that good. It never happens, honestly. But if it does, what it's trying to do is push that strategy of when your opponent draws a card, that's what causes your boss stage to activate, thus summoning another resource to your field. But chances are you've already used it that turn anyway, so this just kind of pointless. It's there just to be there. Protects your monsters a little bit more, though. It makes them deal with your tokens. Next, we've got one Kuji Kiri Curse. This one got way overhyped when Generators first came out, and it was up to like $4. I think now it's like 82 cents or something. I could be way off, but it's not expensive anymore. It's not as good as people thought. It's a level 9 trade-in. But the thing is with Generators, you run ratios so that you don't see them in your hand. So it kind of conflicts. If you're running this with that being your main draw power and consistency engine, that's not great because you don't want to just lose all your Generator cards and then draw into more Generator. Like, you might discard a viable Generator monster and draw into 2 more, and then you can't play those either. So Kuji Kiri Curse is good at 1 in those niche points where you're like, wow, my hand's a total brick fest. I got to just go for it. But this should not be your main draw power because it kind of conflicts with the deck's overall strategy. Next, we've got 3 Dark World Dealings. This one I like a little better because you don't want to draw too much, but you do want to have consistent ways to get to cards. So Dark World Dealings is nice because you only draw 1, and then you get to choose what you discard. So you don't have to lose a resource that you like. You can ditch the bricky card that you probably did, draw at least 1 of. That happens to everybody. And then it makes your opponent do the same. And while I know I just got on a high horse about Frody giving your opponent advantage, it's not giving them more cards than you. They still have to ditch a card after they draw. And then what's happening there is you're still gaining advantage over them because you activate this with boss stage on the field, and then you get to summon a Generator boss during your turn rather than just their turn. And now you've got field advantage over them. So Dark World Dealings can still be really good. You just have to time it correctly. And it also, it's not the end of the world for your opponent to draw 1, discard 1, because they're going to have to decide what resource is no longer worth playing. And you might get also a window into what they're playing while you're going blind first. So that can be helpful too. I'm not trying to oversell Dark World Dealings, but yeah, that's why I run it. I think it works well with the strategy. Next, we've got a German copy, an English copy, and another German copy, hashtag saving money, on World Legacy Monstrosity. This one is really, really great for turboing out 2 more level 9s to either go into an Exceeds play or even just bring out Nightmare Corruptor Idly and just keep those cards out because it saves them from destruction from this card. Otherwise, they would be destroyed. So if you don't bring out an Idly, understand that those 2 resources, you do have to use them for an Exceed summon. But if you bring out an Idly plus another, you can save them, and then you just have more advantage over your opponent to interrupt them and so on with the 2 tokens that'll generate next turn because you already have 3 monsters on field. So really, really good card for bringing out calamities and stunning your opponent. Let's not beat around the bush. That's what it's there for. The other Exceeds monsters are meh, but they're in there in case you need them. Next, we've got, excuse me, had to pass gas out of my mouth. Next, we've got Super Poly. This is really good with your tokens, and just, I've got some Super Poly targets too for dealing with opponents' monsters. But to get the most out of your tokens, sometimes you're going to be left with 2. You're not always going to tribute every single token that you generated that turn. Yeah, generated, get it? Generator, because So, anyway. So Super Poly. Anyway, back to reality. You can make First of the Dragons with your tokens because they are technically normal monsters. So you can Super Poly them away on your opponent's turn and create a monster that's just really tough for them to deal with. So they might exhaust their resources getting rid of that when it's really, really super easy for you to make. And then you didn't really lose anything making it because tokens were free. Yes, you have to discard a card, but that's not the biggest deal. You just got to time it right. Like I said, use it in the right time. If you don't think it's going to be a good play, definitely don't do it. But you've got other targets too. So yeah, Super Poly is a really good interruption. Next, we've got 3 Generator boss fight. This trap rips. So you activate this. You can only do it once per turn, but I think it's still worth running at 3, and it's searchable. So you activate this, and you can activate 1 Generator field spell, aka boss stage, directly from your deck or graveyard. So you can keep recycling them if they popped it. And then your opponent draws one card, which in this case is a good thing because then it allows you to keep up with their advantage that they're getting by bringing out something from your deck. So they gain something, you gain something. It's not as though you're losing something in order to do that, which I think is worth playing. What's really interesting too is you'll notice that they didn't just say boss stage. There's potential that they, oh, you can't actually, that got blurrier the closer I got. It says activate one Generaider field spell, which means there's potential that they make more later on, perhaps that boost the strategy a little more, because they could have easily said activate one Generaider boss stage, but they didn't. So that makes me excited for the future. Hopefully they come out with something more. Our last Generaider themed card is Generaider Boss Room. This is very searchable, so I only run one, just like Loot, but this one's actually really good because what it does is if your opponent ashes your boss stage or ashes something else you're doing or even just responds at all, you can change the effect to both players draw one card, which is really nice because that might potentially keep your boss stage active, and it can potentially allow you to activate another one because boss fight can actually take away your current boss stage after you've summoned with it, special summon another one, and you don't special summon a spell. It allows you to activate another one, and then your opponent draws, and you can actually activate the summon effect on a new copy. Again, it's a soft once per turn. The only thing that's a hard once per turn is the token generation. So you could potentially get 2 boss monsters out of that and protect yourself from that being negated with Boss Room. Lastly, we've got There Can Be Only One, which gives the deck a lot more control over the board. This can sometimes just be flip this over, good game, which is really, really nice because you've got all different types. You don't really deal with this being an issue. The only time that it conflicts with the strategy is you're only going to get 1 token. So keep in mind that if you activate this, be sure that it's your win more card and that it's going to win you the duel just because you will not have multiple tokens to tribute and whatever. So you want to have the right interruption out, and so on. So just keep that in mind. That's it for the main deck, guys. Let's get into the extra deck, and I'll talk very briefly about the side deck. Next. First, we'll just start from what we have here. We've got the Geo Math Mech Final Sigma. Occasionally, you top deck an Ash Blossom, and you don't need it anymore at that point in the duel. You always have a level 9 on the board, so you can normal summon that Ash Blossom and then synchro into an unbeatable guy as long as it is in the extra monster zone. Really, really good card. Sometimes it can win you the duel. Next, we've got 2 True King of All Calamities. This is your stun card going first. If you can manage to pull it off, this can also just win you the duel. But occasionally, you run into decks that this is not the answer, so you just want to be mindful of that. This is not always the best move, but it can be a win condition for the deck as long as you had access to it. Next, we've got 9 Lives Cat. I think this is really underrated. It's a common, super easy to get a hold of. Just 2 level 9 monsters, just like Calamities. And what you can do with this is actually special summon things from the graveyard as if it's a monster reborn. You can get your opponent's monsters or any level 9 from your own graveyard. So that's pretty dope. And anything that you have special summoned from the graveyard cannot be targeted. That's what this other, like, just kind of blanket, what's the floodgate, just inherent effect is. I'm struggling with how to word that, but it's just an effect that is while it's on the board. I don't know why I can't find the words for it, but oh well, we're moving on. Next, we've got Infinitrack Earth Slicer. This is just good for some more removal. Let's say you're out of tokens and you've got just kind of some unusable Generaider bosses. You can make Earth Slicer and then detach 2 and then pop 2 that way, and your opponent doesn't get to draw because of it, which is really nice. And then when it attacks, you can keep attaching material. And then, of course, its last effect too. If it's in your graveyard, you contribute 1 machine to bring it back from the graveyard, which is really nice. So you do have machines in the deck. Next, we've got this guy, which actually kind of sucks. But it's in there because it's a Generaider card, and you've got lots of room in the extra deck to kind of put whatever you want in there. It is Jormungandr, really neat name, rolls off the tongue nicely. Better than King Scarlet. Generaider, I'm changing my name to Jormungandr. It's sealed, be ready. I'm not going to. Jormungandr, Generaider Boss of Eternity. I said Generator. What the frick, man? Generaider Boss of Eternity. It's an attack modulation effect that attaches your opponent's stuff and makes us both draw cards. You're probably never going to make this. If you did, It's probably just a casual duel, which is fine, but this is not a very competitively viable card. Like I said, it's in there because it fits the theme and you've got room in the extra deck, as this is not dependent on your extra deck. Feel free to replace this with whatever. Next, we've got Link Spider, because occasionally, as I mentioned, unless someone points out otherwise, you can save your tokens. So turning that into an effect monster can be useful on occasion. Then you've got Phoenix, just to have some ready-to-go back row hate. You don't run any in game one. You would side deck that in, which is what I would probably side deck it all for this. Then you've got World Gears of Theological Demiurgy. I picked a deck with just the most possible stumbling blocks of words. Oh my goodness. This one is really nice because it takes 3 level 5 or higher monsters, which is very easy for you to get a hold of. And when you link this off, or not link it off, when you link summon this card, as long as it was link summoned, it is unaffected by other monsters' effects, so already tough to deal with. And during the main phase, if I control this card that was link summoned using 3 monsters that had different types and attributes on the field, I can destroy all other cards on the field. So non-targeting removal too just blows up the whole board going second, as long as I could manage to get out 3 level 9 guys that are different types and attributes. And then finally, it has another effect about searching World Legacy monsters. I don't use it in this deck because I don't run any, but you could possibly throw some techs in to make that a little more useful, but really good card. Finally, we've got Boral Sword Dragon, which, is occasionally possible to hit the OTK button and just win that way, but not super duper often, so it's just in there because why not? Then finally, our 3 super poly targets. I already talked about first are the dragons, just tough to deal with, make it with tokens. Then we've got Starving Venom for those dark decks, and then we've still got Salamangrates running around, so we've got the Earth Golem Ignister. This could always come out later if Salamangrates ever drop out of the meta. And then side decking, guys, like I said, that's going to depend on matchups, that's going to depend on your environment and so on, but I would really, really try to side deck for going second, so maybe throw in some more hand traps, back row removal, so on. Blow out cards if you have them, and that's pretty much it. So yeah, thanks guys for watching, and yeah, that's Generators for you. If you liked the video, give it a like, subscribe, and see ya.